Hey buddy, how's it going?
Oh, not too bad. How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. You're looking pretty good, by the way.
Thanks, right back at you.
What you doing there?
I'm just checking out my tire traction. Got maybe 20, 30 tractions.
20, 30? That's not too bad. Hey, check out this tire. It's got pretty good traction.
Really?
What if you just threw this one on that rim?
Well, I would, but I don't know how.
Throw it on the old machine and bada boom, bada bing.
If only there was someone here that knew how to do it.
It certainly is a good thing that I'm here. Does this intimidate you? Well, hopefully after this it won't, because I'm going to tell you everything there is to know about our tire changer. And here's a hint. It changes tires. So, we find ourselves here yet again, Tuesday, the day of the tools. And today, the tool of choice is our Hunter TC-X57 tire changing machine. This is a pretty skooka machine that does its job very well, but there is a lot to it, so hopefully as I work through this process, you will gain a better understanding and eventually be able to use it with ease. Of course, on a safety related note, we want to make sure that if we are using this, we are wearing our eye protection, so we can continue to see the things that we are working on. So before I start showing you how the machine works, I want to go over a few bits of terminology so that you understand what I'm talking about as I'm showing you the process. So first of all, here we have a tire. Here we have a rim, and here we have the rim and tire combination. Now you know. All right, a couple of other quick terms. We've got the bead of the tire, which is here. Here it is cut open. You can see it is bound with wire, and that's to give it some added strength so that it maintains its seal against the rim. And on the rim, we have the bead seat. And yep, you guessed it, that is where the bead of the tire seals to the rim in order to keep the air within the tire. Often if you have a slow leak in your tire, it's due to debris or corrosion buildup between the bead of the tire and the bead seat. This is known as the valve stem. This is a Schrader style valve, which is the same type of valve that you would find on a bicycle tire. Within the valve stem is the valve core, and that is what keeps the air within the tires. It's also what allows you to release the air from your tires. This may also be one of the reasons why your tire is leaking air. These valve stems can wear out and need to be replaced with new ones. Okay, so now that we understand all of that terminology, let's start this process. The first thing that I want to do before I start changing this tire is I want to remove any existing wheel weights. This is our valve core removal tool, and you're not going to believe what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to use this to remove the valve core. You can see there's two little flats on that, and you can hopefully see there's two little flat spots on the valve core. Be careful as you're removing this because the air is under some pretty significant pressure and it can shoot these valve cores out at your face. Okay, so now that we've removed all of the air from the tire, we can move on to breaking the bead. So, safety regarding this thing, it does not care what is between the dish and this platform. So if your leg is here, you can imagine what would happen. So do not put any limbs in between these surfaces. The controls on the machine are pretty simple. We've got in and out. In and out. in and out. So as best as possible, we want to line up the dish of the bead remover with the circumference of the rim. And sometimes you have to rotate the tire to make sure that you get the entirety of the bead removed. One thing I should also mention is that on some new highfalutin fancy cars, they have what are known as TPMS sensors, tire pressure monitor sensors, and these are found within the tire. They correspond with the valve stem and they look like this. So if we're breaking beads on tires that have TPMS sensors, we want to be careful not to break the bead where the valve stem is, because that could result in damage to these TPMS sensors. Now that I've broken the bead on this side, I can flip the tire around and do the other side. So I've got the bead broken on both sides of this tire. One step that I need to complete before I mount the tire to the machine is I need to lubricate the bead and the rim on both sides to make the tire removal process a little bit easier. Okay, so once I've got the bead lubricated, I can mount the wheel to the machine. This is the platform. There are two different ways that we can mount a wheel. We can mount it internally on the inside of the rim, and we can mount it externally on the bead seats of the rim. This middle pedal controls the claws here that allow us to grab the rim. If we press it once down all the way, the claws will move all the way out. If we press it again, the claws will move back in. But if we have the claws all the way out, we can hold the pedal down to adjust these claws to specific measurements. So you can see we've got numbers along here, and if I hold my foot on the pedal, you can see I can actually manually adjust where the claws are ending up. So let's say we wanted to mount this rim by the bead seats. We could control the claws with the foot pedal and use it to grab the bead seat. And you can see I've grabbed the rim from the outside. So that's one way we can mount a rim. Another way to mount a wheel, and the way that is more common, is we will bring the claws all the way into the center. We then put our rim onto the claws. We hit the pedal, and that will firmly grab the rim and make sure that it can't move anywhere. So the second method is how I'm gonna mount my wheel to the machine. The claws are all the way in. I'm gonna put the wheel over top, and then I'm gonna hit this middle pedal and it should grab that rim. It's always good to just give it a test to make sure it's solid. And then we can go on to the next step in the process. So this next step involves bringing this mechanism over the wheel. So to do that, we use this left pedal here, press down, and that arm will come over. One thing that I definitely want to mention is that if for whatever reason this is already in a lower position, you do run the risk of having it swing over and make contact with your rim. So make sure before you hit that pedal that this mechanism is in the highest position. And you can do that simply by pressing this button. So once we have this over our wheel, we can set it up. We want to get this edge placed directly against the lip of the rim here. So we've got a handle here. You want to bring this down. Get it pressed right up against the lip of the rim like that, and press this button here to lock it into place. And you'll see that it moves a little bit automatically to give clearance so that you're not gouging the rim. We have one more foot pedal function, and that is the far right pedal, and that allows us to spin the platform that the wheel is mounted on. You press down to spin in a clockwise direction, and you can pull the pedal up to spin in a counterclockwise direction. The next step is to get this hook inserted into the wheel to grab the bead in order to pull it over the lip of the rim. That hook is controlled by this lever here. You simply press down and the hook will go down. You pull up and the hook will go up. Press down, press up. So again, I'm gonna bring that hook down. You can see right now the hook is sitting on top of the bead, but we actually want to get it underneath the bead. And so there are two ways that we can go about doing this. One of the ways is sometimes we can simply spin the wheel and the hook will end up inside the bead. We'll see if that works here. And just like that, I've hooked the bead. But let's say that did not work. What we can do is grab our tire spoon and you can see it's got a little bit of a lip there. You use that to grab the bead of the tire and simply pry it up and over that hook. And that's the way we can manually get the bead hooked. So once we've got the bead hooked, all we have to do is use this lever once again and pull that hook up, and that will drag that bead up and over the lip of the rim. So you can see now the bead of the tire is above the lip of the rim. Now all we need to do is spin that wheel. Okay, so this top bead has been removed from the rim. So sometimes you'll find that the bead does not want to be removed and the wheel will keep spinning and spinning and the bead of the tire will not come up over the lip of the rim like this. If that is to happen, all we have to do is grab our tire spoon again, and we can place it between the bead of the tire, the lip of the rim, like this, and that will help to leverage it out of the rim. So the process is the same for the lower bead. It's hard to see, but what we can do is pull the top bead up and over the mechanism, lower the hook again. We want to make sure that the hook is below the lower bead. So you can see there that that hook is underneath. Sometimes, again, we need to use the tire spoon to aid in getting the hook around the bead. Once we know that we've got that lower bead hooked, we can use the lever again to pull the lower bead up and over the lip of the rim. And then we repeat the same process for the lower bead. So we want to get this arm out of the way, but we want to make sure that it doesn't take the tire with it. So I'm going to hold the tire here and then hit the pedal. And we've successfully removed the tire. So for removing an old tire, we're not usually as worried about damaging it. New tires also have a little bit less flex and a little bit less play. We definitely want to make sure that the bead is really well lubricated to make the process as easy as possible. So once I've got both beads lubricated, I want to get the tire set up to install it. Because we just use this mechanism at this height on this rim, we don't actually need to readjust the height of it. It should already be situated perfectly on this rim. So all we have to do is put the tire in the right spot, press the pedal, and the mechanism should go exactly where we want it to go. So once we are ready to remount our tire, there are two very important directions that I want you to remember, and those are over and under. We want the bead of the tire, seen here, to be over this fin and to be under this hook. If we do not have the tire in that orientation, more often than not, you will tear the bead and wreck the tire. So we want to make sure that we are over and under. One last step that makes this process a bit easier is giving the tire a good shove to help the bead seat onto the rim. And once I've got this in place, over and under, I can simply spin the platform and the bead should make its way onto the rim. Voila. If at all during this process you hear resistance maybe from the machine, if you hear crackling, if you hear tearing, definitely stop rotating the platform and then back off and assess the situation. So this process is the exact same for the top bead. I want to make sure that the bead of the tire is over that fin and underneath this hook here. And then I'm going to give it a shove. And once I've got it in place, I simply need to rotate the platform and the bead should mount. And we have fully mounted this tire to the rim. One thing that I shouldn't have to say, but I'm going to say anyways, is that it's important to keep your digits away from any potential pinch points. So as you're mounting the tire to the rim, you definitely don't want to have your fingers anywhere here where the tire could pinch it to the rim. So we have one last step, and that is seating the beads of the tire and refilling it with air. So I'm going to turn the wheel so that the valve is on this side of the machine. And we've got our air hose here. We can hook this up to the valve, and you can see there's still no valve core in the stem, and that is important for the step because we don't want any obstruction of the airflow into the tire during this process. So clip the hose onto the valve stem. And then we can use this pedal to inject air into the wheel. So when we seat the beads, you'll often hear two loud pops, and those are the beads of the tire fitting to the bead seats on the rim. Sometimes it can be quite violent, so just be prepared for some loud sounds if you are doing this. So I'm gonna press on the pedal. So that was pretty tame as far as bead seating goes. Oftentimes it can actually be deafening pops, but that was nice and easy. So one thing that I definitely want to mention is this. Filling tires can actually be quite dangerous, and we want to make sure that we're doing it safely. On this machine, we never want to exceed 30 psi while we are filling a tire. If for whatever reason the beads have not seated yet at 30 psi, we'll have to potentially reassess the situation and come at it from a different angle. But again, we do not want to fill tires more than 30 psi on this machine. One other thing, when you are filling the tire with air, this gauge does not change. It's not until you've taken your foot off of the pedal that the gauge will adjust for the current air pressure. See, it's not until I take my foot off the pedal that the air pressure adjusts. So make sure that you are stopping to check throughout this process. So after we've seated the beads and filled the tire, we want to reinstall this valve core. It can be a bit tricky, but make sure you've got your valve core on hand and your valve core installation tool. Hopefully that doesn't shoot back out at you. And here we have a mounted and filled tire. Wow! We'll remove the wheel from the machine. So one last thing that I always like to do before I mount a wheel to a car is check it for leaks. So I'll spray it with soapy water around the bead to see if the tire is leaking, because then I can easily fix that here before I balance the tire. Okay, so there's nothing on this side. And there's nothing on this side either. Good tire. So, hopefully this process seems doable. And remember, if it smells like rubber, it might be rubber. Wonder if you could mount a phone. I don't think it worked. At least we tried. Catch you next Tuesday.
What the dog doing?